today with Emily Mcguiness, the creator of the zombie game. How you doing, Emily?
Doing great today. Ready for a brand new 2021.
Right. So, tell us about the zombie game. Did you fund it yourself or did you kickstart it?
Actually, we are starting our Kickstarter March 30th. I am the co-creator with my husband. Our artist is Pablo Ashala, and it's a cool little zombie horror book that we've been working on for a couple years now. I've worked in comics on and off for a long time, so we're excited to get our next book out.
Oh, nice. What other books have you worked on?
Yeah, so I originally started way back in the day on Hatter M, which is Frank Beddor's Alice in Wonderland adaptation. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, it's super cool. I got to work with him on a bunch of his books, and I also worked for Boom Studios for a time. And in that time, I also self-published a couple things. So did the whole comic convention circuit, and really like did my best to just get out there with a couple things. My first book was called Ties, which seems like so old at this point. Like it was like a billion years ago when I was a baby artist. You know, it was like my first ever. It's all in black and white, because I was like desperate to have it cheap to print.
Yeah.
All those things we do as like brand new comic artists and like trying to make it and get our story out there. Um, and I eventually self-published another fun like kids book called Dead Stinky Animals. So it's an ABC book. You get 2 animals per letter, high
Right.
quality for your dollar. But you know, it's just weird, quirky things that I did in my spare time as I like moved into film and television and stuff like that. Like comics was always my heart and my love. Like I just loved the medium so much that like I never stopped creating in it, even if I didn't necessarily work in it every day. So it's this next book has been like a really long time coming. My husband originally wrote the screenplay, and I was like, "Why are you doing this as a screenplay? This used to be a comic book. This is insane. This is like perfect with like zombies and blood and like gore and dripping and like all of this stuff. Like, there's no way a film could ever do this full justice the way a comic book can, you know?"
Mhm.
That sense of time, like that sense of menace, like what we put into the gutters of like how we read comics. I'm like, please let me adapt this. Please, like, let me teach you, Padawan, of like how we make comics.
Right. All right. Is it gonna be a trade paperback or
Yeah,
is
so I'm for better or worse, look, like I'm a trade waiter. Like I enjoy comics as like a full story that's like fully told over not just 24 pages. So when we set out to make our book, like that's really what I wanted, and I know so much of the indie space like works that way
Mhm.
because you just get to tell, in my opinion, you get to tell like a more complete story with it.
All right. And where can people pick up some of your earlier works that you was telling us about?
Yeah, so you can visit latchkeystudios.com, and I have all of my stuff out there. And you'll get to see like the ABC book and all the things that we already mentioned. And then, special for your viewers, you guys are going to get to see the companion coloring book to the graphic novel, which I got to fully illustrate for this. So it is a lush 54 pages of coloring Leg, who is our main character's service dog. So it's a reflection of the graphic novel told from the service dog's perspective.
That's so cool. I've never heard of that. I think, yeah, that's a very creative, I mean, an original idea. I like that.
Yeah, we're super excited because it goes so well with like the book, which is kind of like more serious and dark and like full of horror, but like definitely I love quirky, weird things. So I was like, how do I turn this story on its head? Like, how do I show some like personality and some levity? Well, like, the character of Leg is actually modeled after our own golden retriever, who is a big giant dope. Like, he's just an idiot. So he was like the perfect model and like the perfect storytelling device to like get something fun, like extra out of the book. So
All right, and you said that goes live the 30th of March?
yeah, absolutely. We were slightly disappointed that we missed April Fools by one day. But yep, March 30th will be live on Kickstarter. And in the meantime, there's all different ways to reach us. We're on Instagram at the Zombie Game. Hopefully, we made it super easy to spell. And we have like a fun mailing list, and we're on Facebook and all that stuff, all at the Zombie Game. We tried to keep it consistent because we love the title of our book.
Did you change the title of the screenplay? Choose the
No,
zombie game, or was that the name?
it was always the Zombie Game in our hearts. Like we wanted it to be direct. We wanted you to know what you were getting. You're gonna get zombies, and there's a game that's gonna be played. We figured we couldn't go wrong.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, what kind of game are they playing? You got me curious now. Could you give us the summary of the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So a bunch of college students go to an end of the year party thinking that they're just going to blow off some steam, and they end up finding themselves trapped in a live action video game being hunted by the rich.
No.
And the game has actually turned the partygoers into zombies through this drug that like rains down upon them. And they themselves are not turned into zombies because, like, actually a huge percentage of the population, they are on different mind-altering drugs. So a certain percentage of these people who are trapped in the game by the game master will always survive, but they're being hunted by these people who have paid to play this live action video game just as much as the people who have been turned into zombies.
Wow. That's we might have to pick that up ourselves. That sounds pretty cool. So what kind of zombies are they? Do you have the fast runner zombies, or do you have the slow I guess, yeah, slow. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, just the slow zombies that we're going to go with.
Absolutely. So in our book, we could not choose just one because we are true horror fans. We actually crammed a whole bunch of different zombies in there because there are a bunch of different levels that where you encounter like different zombies. Because the one thing about zombie movies and like books about zombies is like as soon as you figure out how to defeat that zombie, like the story changes, right? It's
Yeah.
the end of the story. You know how to defeat them. You can like stand still in the dark or like not make any noise or whatever it is, and then your story is basically over, right? So we wanted to not only like have an homage to like all those movies that we loved, but it also propelled the story forward because as soon as you think you've figured out like what's happening on level 1, which are all the classic like Romero, like slow shambly zombies, you get to level 2 and it's the highly controversial rage zombies from 28 Days Later. I know I'm going to get tagged in the comments that they are not actually zombies. Yes, I have had this discussion and you are wrong. They are zombies. So and so on, like through all the levels of the game. So it just made it even harder for our survivors to like figure out what to do because it's all different types.
All right. Is this going to be your first Kickstarter ever?
It's actually my second Kickstarter, way back in the Stone Ages. I feel like when Kickstarter was just starting, I successfully funded my first graphic novel that I self-published. So, but Kickstarter has grown so much. Like the thing I'm most excited about this Kickstarter is that they finally released add-ons. So not only can you like get our book and like some of our fun stuff, like now we have super exciting like add-ons where like you can do whatever combination you want. Like it's so cool that Kickstarter's open that.
All right. What would you tell the people out there that wants to do a Kickstarter but don't know how? What advice would you give them?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that like really 99% of Kickstarter is preparation. So you have a thing, you have a book, and like you did this creative thing, but like although a Kickstarter is creative to some degree, it's really marketing. And that is not always like the same thing as like making a kick-ass book, right? It's not the same kind of like mental process. So, but it doesn't mean that you can't learn it. And so part of that preparation is learning. Like there's a ton of great courses out there. Comics Launch, like Russell Nolte has a course that you can take on like upping your Kickstarter game, like even just learning more about marketing in general, learning about social media platforms, like learning how to talk to people like you and like where you find cool podcasts and shows about comics is like the biggest thing of like prepping to get to like the end goal of the Kickstarter.
Okay. And would you say it was easier making a comic with your husband than someone else?
I would say the opposite of that.
Okay.
We very early on in our relationship, since we're both creative people, we attempted to write together once, just once. And it was a complete disaster. Like he's over in the corner, like rambling to himself, like speaking in character voices. I'm like, are you possessed? Like what is happening over there? Like, oh my God. And I'm over here like making my list and like making like laying out the story structure and like creating character bios. So we do not write in the same way in any way, shape, or form.
All right. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Oh, was y'all after the book comes out? Are you going to turn it into a movie, or is it just going to stay the comic book?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we actually have 2 more books planned for the series, and so we would love to keep going with the story in comic book form because we have like we understand the potential and how like amazing it can be in comics. Now, look, if someone wants to, you know, stop by and say, "Hey, come over to Netflix and here's lots of money."
Right.
I don't think anyone's gonna say no. But the script and the story itself would really have to change to be a film because they're different things. You know, like a comic is a comic and a film is a film. So we would be open to it, but we would basically have to like rewrite it again.
All right. Are you gonna stick with the black and white, or are you gonna do full color?
Yeah, so this book is full color, and it is you can see like some of our artwork up already on Instagram at the Zombie Game. We picked Pablo as our artist because he actually digitally paints, and he paints with light. And so the artwork is really special to us, and really different from kind of what you see in other books. Like, he's not inking and then we're putting colors over it, and that just gave us, and we had originally thought that that's where we were going to go with the book, was that we were going to traditionally like ink it and like maybe do like The Walking Dead and have it in all black and white. But as soon as we saw Pablo's art, we're like, oh my god, like zombies are going to look amazing like with this. So it's, and like when you get into his panels, there's all, well, not only are there Easter eggs in the book from all different like horror horror movies and a whole bunch of things like that, but like when you delve into his panels, you start seeing like all these details. Luckily, because I've sat with it for so long and I can like zoom in on all the images, you start seeing like fingerprints in it. You start seeing like how like blood spatter like moves across the page, and like how detailed like his artwork actually is. So yeah, full color, and an insane amount of detail, which we're excited to work with like a good printer that kind of shows off all of that art.
All right. And when the world kind of gets back to normal, are y'all going to be attending Comic Cons or cons?
100%, we're ready. Like, we wish it was tomorrow. We wish it was tomorrow. So I had originally like dragged my husband before all this started to like a few conventions, and actually like our second date was at Kamikaze here in LA.
Oh, nice.
And so I knew he was a keeper because he braved LA traffic to come to a comic convention. But yeah, we miss it so much, like the community and getting to meet people and just seeing that like people are excited about comics and about like finding their tribe and talking to each other. So we're super excited to get back to that when we can. You know, in the meantime, like we're trying to talk to as many people as we can with awesome shows like yours, because at least, you know, we get to form some sort of community with stuff like your show.
Well, thank you. Do you go as a fan, or do you have a booth normally at the Comic Con?
I've been both. I've done both. I like having a booth because I like, you know, showing off the latest project and getting to talk to people, but I always make sure I slip out to like one or two panels and go see friends at conventions and stuff like that.
Yeah, in LA, y'all get all the big stars down there, over there.
Yeah, for better or worse, that's for sure.
All right, Emily. Well, thank you for coming on and talking to us. Is there anything you want to say to the people before we go?
Yeah, we're just so excited to like meet more people and get this book into people's hands. Like, we're such comic fans that like we want to geek out like over our own book. So like if anyone has questions or like wants to hear more about the story, you know, like follow us on Instagram or Facebook, because we're ready to get nerdy. Like we we want to delve into like your favorite zombie, and I guess I do want you to tell me like why 28 Days Later is not a zombie movie. I mean, we can have a nerd fight. It's okay. You can tell me.
All right. Well, thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thank you so much.